It's Monday, June 2nd, 2014. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, old computers. The oldest. Let's do this. So for those of you who don't pay attention to what I do kind of outside of Geeknights, a lot of my job when I'm not flying around the world hosting fancy cocktail parties is doing concept design for features for products and services. So like, I'll draw a picture of like, this is the feature we should have in this thing, and it'll graph data like this, or it'll let someone do this, and I'll mock up like, here's the functional design, and here's the widgets people could click on, and vague things like scale these graphs according to whatever. Not a mock up like the final development specification that someone who knows nothing about the thing itself could write, but like here's enough for a smart person to write this code and it'll do pretty much what I want it to.
Okay.
And what I've discovered over the years is that fucking nobody ever reads those documents. Ever. I recently sent one of those documents to someone who had asked me for this feature thing. I was like, how about this? Does this do what the customer is asking for? And the response I got back immediately was a question that said, can you see him by message type? And I was like, that's in the picture that I showed you. It's also in the footnote of that picture, and it's in the actual paragraph that explains what the thing does. Do you have any more questions? And without skipping a beat, he proceeded to ask me another question, to which the answer was the same. I don't know how software gets made.
You should have said, please read my document before asking any more questions. I will not answer any questions until you have finished reading all the documents that I've sent you.
Yeah, I've attempted that. And you know what happens? Radio silence, and then I just develop the thing in a vacuum, followed by, hey, it doesn't do this thing we wanted.
Well, then why didn't you read my document?
Yeah, that's the world.
Are you incompetent? Clearly.
I
You're
wonder,
fired. I'm hiring someone competent.
What I wonder is if it's different in larger companies, or if it's just more Dilberty in larger companies.
My company is less Dilberty.
Like, I wonder if I was doing that same thing at Google, like, would the people who care actually read my spec, or would it be the same? Like, I wonder.
They tend to have a bunch of people work on something together, not one person just tells someone else what to do.
No, well, from what I gather, I've been talking to a lot of them lately because they keep bothering me. There's an implication that at least in some of the divisions or in like some of the products, there'll be one person who has like, the vision of what X should do, and they kind of do the guiding principle document, and then other people flesh it all in and work as a group.
I think Google's plan is to eventually get all the tech people that ever were
that are under the age of 35.
Just all the tech people, period, to work for it, and then basically just hold the world hostage, right? As long as there are other tech people, they can't, enact that plan.
Yeah.
So I'm not working for them.
I would work for them if they gave me the right stuff, but they'd have to give me the right stuff.
I work for anyone who gives me the right stuff, unless they want me to murder people or something.
Depends what kind of people.
Or be murdered.
I don't think there's that many jobs that pay enough that for you in the be murdered category.
All military jobs?
That's not be murdered. That's be in danger.
That's very dangerous.
That's a very different job from it. The casualty rate for anything you would ever do for the military is probably lower than you being in a car.
I don't do anything that be dangerous, such as underwater welding or going to any country where people have guns.
What's your threshold of danger? You gonna ride a bike? You gonna drive in a car?
Not really liking the car part.
Yeah, you were just in a car not that long ago.
No, not much choice.
And one of our friends, not much choice. So yeah, you got any news? Monday, Tech Day? Tech News Day?
Giant Apple news today. It's Apple Day. Oh my God.
I'll be honest, I didn't notice it was Apple Day because I don't actually use any Apple products anymore.
Yeah, so it's the Worldwide Developer Conference, so they mostly announce all the things for developers, usually the software updates, the OS X and the iOS, the things that, developers that don't actually work at Apple need to know, right? So there was a bunch of stuff, but none of it is really anything to talk about a lot. Like OS X and iOS are converging in look and feel and features.
Wait. What? Okay. I thought that already happened.
It's happening more than it's gradual, so it's just more.
Well, good luck with that because while they can probably pull it off better, I don't know. I don't know if the people who use Apple computers to do work will have the same adjustment issues that the people who use Windows have when suddenly the single screen touch interface converges with
It's
the
not like
multiple monitor keyboard and mouse interface.
It's not like that. It's like they changed the icons for the apps to be the same. And
Yeah, but
they
so in
changed the
that
style
case,
of the pull-down menus to be the same.
That's not even fucking news.
Anyway.
Like, even to a developer, it's like you don't even have to care about that.
You could also wait till I finish saying all the things before you make comments.
I know, but I'm just saying.
Because you sound like a moron because you don't know the whole story.
Yeah,
at
I'm
all.
looking through this whole list right now. I'm reading in parallel.
Anyway, the big important ones that actually mean something is number one, they made a new programming language called Swift, which is because Objective-C and C are basically really shitty to write iOS and OS X apps in.
That is true.
So they made instead of just letting everyone use some language they already knew, they made some new language that they're claiming is so awesome that no one knows anything about. So if you want to make money and you're a programmer, if you learn this language like today, you will be way ahead of everybody.
That is true.
And it's pretty much guaranteed to be a job-getting thing to know, and there won't be a lot of other people who know it. So
You know what this will be like?
You can, if you start today writing apps in this language as like this second, go buy a Mac if you don't have one, or install it, right? Install the developer Xcode, pay $100 to get the Apple developer account. Start learning Swift and become a Swift expert before anyone else with your, if you have good general programming skills, like I could do this, just start learning Swift, become a Swift expert, and that will probably be your career for the next decade at least.
You know what it's
make
very
a
much
lot of
like?
money. You won't even have to actually program much in Swift. You'll have to like write like 2 apps maybe. And then the rest of your job can be like just teaching other people Swift and doing talks on it. And
Remember when
Apple might
Ruby
even hire you.
came onto the horizon, and suddenly now there's a whole, like, if you just know Ruby and aren't dumb, there's a million jobs at startups and web companies
crappy
everywhere.
jobs.
They're not that bad. They're better than the average non-tech job.
Maybe. The big thing for me in terms of not really a developer feature, well, developers have to know it so that they can work with it, right? Is this really fancy shit they're doing when you combine an iOS device and a Mac together, right? Specifically an iPhone. So, for example, they got a thing now where you can, first of all, the Apple Drive, the Google Drive competitor, iCloud, is now like super synced. So it's like you take a picture and boom, it's on the Mac and it's on the thing like instantly.
Yep.
I guess even more so than it was before. Like you can be like editing a photo on your iPhone and then the photo will be being edited like in your photo viewer on your Mac, like while you're doing it, right?
Yep,
And
that's pretty
vice
chill.
versa. You can, if you get a phone call, right? It's like your Mac will see that there's an iPhone nearby. You can connect it. Like you get a phone call, the thing will show up on your Mac. You can click no or yes, I'll pick up, and then it'll be on speakerphone on the Mac. You know,
See, that is the one level. That's the kind of stuff that because of their convergence, Google cannot do.
right. It's like if you get SMS messages from people who don't have iMessage, right? Because they don't have iPhones, and it hits your phone, but your phone is currently connected to your Mac. Those messages will show up on the Mac in the iChat or iMessage program, right? Like basically, it's like all your devices are going to be like one, device basically, right? Even more so
Yep.
than pretty much any other combination of devices you
I
can
think
buy.
I speak for everyone when I look forward to the divergent software implemented version of that Google does a year down the road that half works and then they give up on.
Sure. That's really interesting. And they're also, the other sort of somewhat big news is they're allowing, basically they opened up iOS a lot more than they did before. So like you can make custom keyboards now. So there's going to be swipe and all those things that, basically everything Android and other OSs, it's Apple's typical play, right? They don't invent anything. They just steal everything and act like they invented it. It's like Spaces. Virtual desktop's like 20 years old, guys. Spaces. You've never seen them before because you've never used Unix before, normal
Yep.
people. We invented these, right?
Even though, funnily, the more advanced my personal computer workflows get, I need multiple desktops less and less unless I'm writing code. Like they're less and less useful in a world of I've got 3 monitors on my desktop.
3 monitors.
Yeah.
Most people have one. So it's like they're adding all this stuff to iOS that Android and other OSs have had for a long time that they didn't have. For example, like in the notifications, there's notifications that you can interact with. It's like if I get a message and I look at my notification pull down and it says like message, I can push reply right the fuck there. Android has been doing that for a long time.
Yeah, it has.
You can put widgets and shit. They haven't had widgets. You
All right, I
customize the
still
key-
stand by the fact that the new look is one of the most milquetoast announcements in the history of Apple. Flat design, translucent panels, absence of gradients.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are the 3 headlines there.
Okay.
Oh, new icons.
Oh, and also, if you try to email someone an attachment, it'll upload your attachment to the cloud and send them an email with a link. So that way you
Oh.
don't have to worry about giant email attachments fucking you over.
Yeah, actually, Google Drive's been doing that pretty well for a while now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, not the person you're mailing might not have Gmail.
Yeah, but in that case, I just give them one of those semi-secure, anyone can click on this obscured link to get it thing.
The other thing that's interesting is, so you can use Siri hands-free, which I don't care about. But more importantly, when you do the searching where you just type things in, it actually does like a Siri search, just not without the stupid talking part. So
It was a long time coming.
you can get a really powerful search as opposed to just searching like the apps on your phone, right? You can actually search everything, what Siri would do. So I can just type into my phone, right? Like on the search screen, score of the football game, and it'll tell me, as opposed to that used to be something I would have to either ask Siri or go to a website and Google.
True, but at the same time, what do? Google Now just kind of pops up and tells me the score to every sport I care about for every team I care
I have
about.
Google Now also.
Yeah,
So it's not a big deal.
yeah,
Anyway.
exactly.
All right, that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, just they didn't announce anything particularly exciting to anyone but developers. All this stuff is just nice incremental improvements.
Apple fanboys.
Yeah.
Do they go crazy?
I don't know. Even if I was a fanboy, I'd be hard to go crazy. This would be like if they were like, we're releasing Evangelion like 11.11.11 and it's the same as episode 1.
You should read.
But we used a new cell shader algorithm on the old print to make it look better.
So I'm linking to the Verge article because that's the best summary, right?
Yeah.
But I was watching the Verge live blog, whatever, and the guy doing the live blog, he commented a fuck ton about the music they were playing, right? And then he commented a whole lot about how it bothered him that the icon for the weather app didn't actually have the live weather in it. He commented on that like a whole bunch of times. And then during the part where the guy was demoing the Swift programming language, he was pretty much just like, I have no idea what's going on. There's a wizard on stage, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, wow, this is journalism right here.
For the year 2014, EM play journalist.
Yeah, Verge, you should maybe have someone at the developers conference who knows something about development.
May I make a modest proposal? They should do what sports does. Have a color commentator and a developer commentator. That way they can pass the puck back and forth.
Sure. Anyway,
so in other kind of more disturbing news, for those of you who aren't aware, TrueCrypt, which is a pretty useful disk volume encryption system used in Windows.
You basically use it to encrypt your whole goddamn hard drive
or
at once.
to take a file that basically just looks like random gibberish and have it somewhere, and then you can mount it as a drive and see the data
Right,
on
so
any computer.
It's like your whole C drive is encrypted. If someone just takes your computer from you, they can't read any files on it whatsoever.
Or on your computer,
If they
there's a
take your
file that's called, I don't know, staticaudio.wave. And if you open it in TrueCrypt, it magically decrypts into all your pornography
it
and
becomes
terrorist
the D drive,
instructions.
and the D drive is full of dick. Right?
Yes. So, well, that's what the D drive's for.
Right, or if someone
that's
someone
where
comes-
those drive letters came from, you realize.
Yeah, if someone comes and rips your hard drive out of your computer and puts it in another computer, it'll easily be worthless to them. They won't be able to do shit with it.
It did other things
It
too.
might as well be blank.
TrueCrypt, at least the use case wise, not talking about the back end technology, was really aimed around very practical hiding of data. So, for example, TrueCrypt had the deniable encryption, where you could have an encrypted volume. There's a file block. It's 10 gigabytes, let's say. Statistical analysis of that block, in most cases, will show it as completely random data. But if you type in the correct passkey, then you see the data. You could set it up with layers of deniable encryption where if I type one password, you see a bunch of porn. If you type another password, you see my bomb making instructions. And
Yeah, 'cause
there's
it
no
basically-
way to prove that either one is the quote unquote true volume.
Right, you basically take a whole bunch of porn videos and a whole bunch of bomb making instructions, and you put the the dick on the D drive and you put the bombs on the B drive, but you put them both in the same package together, and then you'd be like, okay, the password for the porn is dick and the password for the bomb is bomb. Someone types in dick, all the dicks come out, but the bombs don't.
So when the NSA or the FBI or the CIA or Mossad or
They're
MI6,
like, what's your password, dick? All right, so they type it in. Oh, it worked. There's no way to know. All right, and there's a bunch of dick.
No, there are edge cases.
It's legal dick. That's all 18 plus. So.
There are edge cases where you could statistically analyze it to figure stuff out. Like, for example, if you run like a live boot disk or a volume inside of there in one of them, so like you boot your computer into multiple different Windowses, the fact that your bomb making instruction Windows has changing metadata within the volume compared to other volumes, they could statistically be pretty sure that, yeah, you've got other sets of encrypted data you're not showing us, but they couldn't prove it. Anyway, we've talked about encryption and stuff before. The news would be, and the news that some people are trying to tell you, is that TrueCrypt is being abandoned by its creators, and they've recommended that you move on to BitLocker, which is the built-in Windows Microsoft encryption volume system. I do not know enough about BitLocker's technology to comment on its usability, its ability to replace this, its security, whether or not it has any weird backdoors mandated by, I don't know. Don't know, no comment on that. Something fishy is up with the way TrueCrypt went down. It's a really weird situation. The webpage for it suddenly lost all its sort of style information and just put up this ghetto webpage that just tells you how to migrate your existing TrueCrypt into BitLocker. They took down the old versions of TrueCrypt, and the current version, 7.2, removed all the encryption capabilities and just gives you the ability to decrypt an existing volume. At the top of the page, they put up in red text, warning, using TrueCrypt is not secure as it may contain unfixed security issues. Someone pointed out, but I think this is just funny and a coincidence, that it says warning TrueCrypt is, and then not secure as, the first letters of those three words is NSA. Which, while that's just funny...
This would be a great practical joke.
It would. Oh my God, this would be the best practical joke. But the signing certificates changed, a bunch of other stuff happened, and the developers have just disappeared from the earth. They're not responding, no comments, no further discussion, nothing. As you know, Scott and I take a very dim view of conspiracy theories and lizard people in the John Birch Society.
But this is lizard people?
Not saying this is lizard people.
It's just crab people?
What I'm saying is that this has all the trappings of a concept you might not be familiar with, called there's a lot of terms for it, but basically it's the canary, or the cop canary.
The bumble?
Yeah, or the warrant canary. The idea that, say, I run a shady business where people buy and sell illegal goods at my home. And let's say that one day the police come to me and say, you're fucked, and we're going to stake you out to get some of your customers. If you say anything, we'll put you in jail forever. If you play along, we'll give you minor charges at the end of all this, or immunity or whatever. So I can't just go to my friends and be like, yo, dog, the FBI's here. Don't come and buy drugs from me. That doesn't work. But what if I say, I put out a classified ad somewhere saying, the FBI has never visited this house. Here's the address. Have I committed a crime? Have I violated the terms of whatever deal I signed?
A judge will be the judge of that.
So it appears, in my sort of outside opinion, and in the opinions of a lot of very smart people, that whoever did this to the website is trying to burn the brand of TrueCrypt as hard as possible to prevent people from continuing to use it or trusting it. Especially in light of the fact that all analysis seems to point at the last stable version of TrueCrypt before this went down, which I believe is 7.1a, as being still, as far as anyone can tell, perfectly secure.
And it's open source, so people have looked through the code on this thing. It's not like there's a hidden backdoor like there could be in some closed source thing.
So right now, everyone who gives a shit about encryption is poring over that last code with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah, someone should just fork it and make a new project.
They probably will. So
like a little X free x86 to Xorg situation.
There are 4 options for what happened here, and I'm going to list them for you in order of likelihood, in my opinion. Option 1, the NSA sent
the
these
most
people.
likely?
Yes, the NSA sent these people one of their sealed security letters.
And they were cowards.
Yeah, like LavaBit. I mean,
Right.
honestly, if the NSA
LavaBit was less cowardly. They fought back.
if the NSS came to me and Scott right now and made us gave us the security letter, I might consider not divulging it to try to not get fucked by the system, at least until I could get out of the country.
I would consider many options.
Yes.
With the advice of lawyers.
Yes, but some of these letters don't let you talk to lawyers.
I talk to them anyway.
Yeah.
The lawyer's not going to... How do they know I talk to a lawyer? The lawyers has to be confidential too.
NSA security letters are bullshit, but I digress.
I definitely wouldn't... There's no document anyone could hand me
I'm just
that I would
saying,
not talk to a lawyer about.
It is possible I would comply enough to not get fucked by people way more powerful than me. I'm not going to pretend that would not be an option I would consider. I am not that invested in protecting the forum from the NSA if they come for me, guys.
I
Just
got
warning you.
backups. I got backups.
So, and as a result, the people involved complied, burned the brand, and backed away. Option 2, there was an existing backdoor. Someone tried to fix it or something happened, and the NSA was like, no, you can't fix that, and then they burned the brand.
Mm-hmm.
Option 3, the developers are just weirdos, and this is what they thought was a perfectly rational way to shut down the project. Option 4, prank / someone compromised the site, and the original owners have no way to uncompromise it due to their commitment to being semi-anonymous.
Option 5. Lizard people.
Yeah, option 5 is lizard people.
Okay.
So be wary and stay tuned. A lot of very smart people are doing a lot of analysis to figure out just what the fuck happened.
So if I want to encrypt my drives, right, and I've never even thought about it before in my life, and I don't already have TrueCrypt installed or anything, I've got a bunch of unencrypted drives and no software to encrypt them, what should I do today?
I don't know. I would if I was ultra paranoid, I would do things we're going to talk about in the second part of this episode. If I wasn't ultra paranoid, just use BitLocker for the time being, or use
I'm sure the Microsoft approved thing is completely safe from the government.
Yeah, it's probably safe for most use cases, but if it matters, you've got to do some due diligence research at this point. Just saying. I'll cover this in depth once there's follow-ups. Believe me, this is like NTP. This kind of thing is deeply in my wheelhouse, and I will let you know as soon as I learn more.
Are you using TrueCrypt?
Yes.
For what?
Not much. I have multiple TrueCrypt volumes. Most of them have inside of them the clear text passwords to a lot of things that I've accessed over the years that I might want to access again one day. Burner email accounts that I established years ago, servers in places with stuff, the passwords to like every bank account ever, just all that kind of shit, like just in case. You never know. Also, like scans of my passport and my driver's licenses and my birth certificates and all the things I would need to prove who I am in case something ever really fucked me.
Or you could just lose those hard drives.
Yeah, those encrypted volumes are in a lot of places. Because what? Someone finds them? Okay, what are you going to do with it? It's fucking encrypted.
Use the back door.
Yeah, if there is a back door. So, I hope you don't find my files if there's a backdoor. And if there isn't a backdoor, gonna keep using the version of TrueCrypt that I used up until we figure out what the fuck happened to TrueCrypt.
Okay.
Things of the day. Scott's got a pretty typical thing of the day here. People like to make logic gates.
Using mechanical things, which is the first way logic gates were ever made.
Yep.
So that's not a surprise. But he did it using strings and pulleys and little rings, and it's really cool. I'd never even thought of this before.
It kind of really illustrates the increasing complexity of certain kinds of logic gates in terms of just like what they're doing.
Yep. And notice how NAND is like the simplest one that's complex in any way.
That's why you can buy chips that are tiny that have like 400 NAND gates just in them.
Yeah, and that's why your CPU is mostly NAND gates.
Well, the other reason is you can derive all other gates from combinations of NAND gates.
Right. It's like, you don't need to make an AND gate. You can just stick a few NAND gates together and make an AND gate. And it's like,
That was the only interesting class I took in IT my freshman year was it was like circuits and design and logic. and hardware and engineering and all that. So it was all about like signal processing.
So if you care about the stuff we talked in like the earliest of early Geeknights Monday episodes about how computers actually work, here's a very good video to help you understand that even better.
Yep. Though, if you're trying to learn logic gates, to be perfectly blunt, the water flowing through pipes with physical gates method is probably a better analogy.
Sure.
This is just cool. So this is just a video. It looks like some guys put together, and it's actually pretty entertaining. They try to figure out what the tallest physical vertical straw, as in a straw you drink through, could actually be used by a human. Like, could a human drink from this straw? How tall could it be? And it's fun because while you could calculate it's a well-known number, the maximum height that any siphon pump could work at if it's working based on vacuum.
Yep.
And other things like that. But this one...
You can go less than vacuum.
This one has the... well, I guess if I use gravitational forces...
Now, you have to increase the pressure at the other end, right? So if you do this experiment, say at sea level, you're probably going to be able to get it a lot higher than if you did it, say, at Mile High Stadium in Colorado.
Well, the interesting factor here is that they actually have people trying to drink from these straws, and it's very well produced. So I highly recommend you watch this. It's really funny.
They didn't use it. See, the thing is, the guy just tries to drink from the straw, and then he stops and he can't go any further. What I would do is I would pinch the straw shut with my hand, right, to basically hold the vacuum in there to keep the liquid up, take a breather, and then go back to it.
I think he physically could not generate more force.
And I could suck even more air out of there, right, and get the liquid. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, once you have a vacuum, right? But I could see I'm sure there was at least some air left in that straw that could have been sucked.
Well, let's have a straw sucking competition.
Let's do it.
And then
Who sucks the most and the hardest and the longest?
you know what? I concede. You win. You suck the most.
I'm the best at sucking.
So, in the meta moment, the book club book is Identical for Leibowitz. It's basically the precursor book to all the types of apocalypse, post-apocalypse books we've been reading recently.
And I don't think I have to read any more because it'll just sort of seal the deal.
Yeah. Watch our YouTubes, join our forum. Seriously, join our forum and post in it. I see a lot of you in the forum, but since we've debated out a lot of the serious issues, most of you are lurking. Post. Say hi.
Just talk about whatever's nerdy right now.
Start up an old argument again. And more importantly, a lot of women are in the forum lurking, but very few of you are posting. Just pointing that out. I've noticed that in the last couple of months.
All right. Also, go to all the other places that we have for communicating. Twitter, Facebook, Google+. We have a newsletter that I actually been sending again because I set up a reminder.
It's a really good newsletter. Kineticon is July 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. It's going to be fucking awesome, and most of the schedule is up.
Beat that every other con ever.
Yeah. God, after some changes that happened internally, I'm pretty confident that next year... But the panels and workshop schedule is going to be up by like March.
If you want to be part of Kineticon, you had to be really dedicated and get on that shit early.
Yeah. Well, a lot of you submitted early, but due to other issues, we couldn't schedule.
I think the
early.
cosplay deadline for Kineticon is in like a week or something like that.
Yeah.
It's really fucking soon.
Yeah, take that every other con.
Yeah.
Oh, it's in Hartford, Connecticut, so...
That's the only problem with it.
Don't fly across the Atlantic Ocean to come to Kineticon.
If you can drive to Kineticon in
one day...
Yeah, and get there in time after you wake up in the morning, and you're a nerd, you should be there.
If you live within 1 day's drive, period, like 6-7 hours,
and you don't have another more important plan.
Yes. Yeah, most things are now more important. I mean, a wedding, yeah, that's
there
more
are very
important.
few things that are more important, but there are some.
State level,
I would miss a Kineticon.
Regional level, probably not.
I would miss a Kineticon if there were a pressing issue.
Yeah, I would miss it for PAX.
Yeah, well, I'd miss pretty much any convention for a PAX.
What about another PAX?
What, there's two PAX at the same time?
Yeah, well, I have a precedence order. PAX Prime trumps all other PAXs.
Of course.
So, between PAX South and PAX East, might pick PAX South.
I don't know. I don't know anything about PAX South yet.
True, but Boston is increasingly disagreeable to me when it comes to PAX East.
That's true.
PAX is awesome. Boston, not so much.
PAX South is much warmer with the weather.
So, the old days... we're talking pre-x86. There were other kinds of computers that people had.
Even x86 is pretty old.
Yeah, we'll talk about those.
Even 486 is old.
Well, we have to talk about those because while you had an Apple IIgs, The first computer I owned was actually a 486SX.
I didn't get that Apple IIgs until I was in high school.
Yeah. In high school, I got a 486, and then later we got a Pentium Pro. And before that, we didn't own a computer. So I used some Apples and some Amigas and some IBM PCs in school, but I never owned one until that 486.
Yeah, pretty much the same deal. We didn't own, we didn't buy. I mean, my cousins had Commodore 64s, but we didn't have a, general purpose computer that wasn't an Atari or an NES or anything until we had a 486.
So I'm going to get this out right before we talk about nostalgia and all that, because I referenced this in the beginning of the show. There are two primary uses for that old technology today. Primary use, three uses. Primary use. Use number one, showing people what old computing was like, being in a museum, historical research.
Sure.
That is the most important use of that technology.
Every object created by man can have that purpose.
Yes.
So that is pointless to say about any object ever created by man.
I think it's worth noting because people seem to forget about those things, and then pieces of technology disappear due to no one bothering until it's too late.
Okay.
Number two, and also, you know what? That's useful to, if you have a kid and they're complaining about their current computer, whip out your Apple II and be like, listen, fucker, this is what I grew up with, so you shut up.
How does it work? They try to touch the screen.
Tell you what, if you figure it out, I'm giving you your real computer back. Show me Frogger running on this, and then we'll talk. Option two, use number two. Hack them to do crazy fucking shit. Use them with modern technology. Get a CD-ROM to work on an Apple II. Connect an old Amiga to the internet and then play a flash game.
There are a lot of ways to connect, relatively old computers to modern technology. My favorite one is a lot of old computers for drives would use cassette tapes. And the way that would work is you take cassette tape and you'd rewind it and press play. And the audio on the cassette tape would basically be zeros and ones. And it would work just like a modem. A modem went...
You could save Atari games and stuff to cassettes.
Right.
It was awesome.
So, you can... The thing is, okay, so you take that... Right? You basically have a recording of what a modem sounded like. That audio is turned into zeros and ones. It goes over this cable into the computer. And the computer loads all that noise. It takes as long as it takes the cassette to play. Usually it would play the cassette at a faster speed, right? But it just basically take all the audio data from the cassette, put it into RAM, then point the program counter at the beginning of the data and run it. And that's a program that got loaded into memory, right?
Yep.
What you can do nowadays is you don't need a cassette. You can just have an MP3, right? And an MP3 can be loaded from the internet on your phone. So I can actually take my Apple IIgs, take a little cable out the top of my iPhone, plug it into the back of the Apple IIgs, go to a website, go to my Apple IIgs and type load or whatever the command is. On that website, there'll be a built-in audio file player. Press SoundCloud or something. I go to SoundCloud on my phone, press play, and that WAV file that's playing is right. And then I'm basically downloading a program from the internet into the Apple IIgs and then running it.
Useful, not so much. Cool.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think that's where most people are interested in this old technology is taking an Apple II and just doing something crazy with the demo scene is really into that still.
Are there still people in the demo scene?
The demo scene has not died.
Really?
The demo scene is kicking and strong. That's something we need to bring to a PAX.
Well, this is right. So
or a Kineticon. Oh my God. Any of you out there, if you're into the modern demo scene
or know any demo scene peeps,
yeah, seriously, email me because I will get you into Kineticon either this year.
I don't know
or
if they
next
want to
year.
go to Kineticon.
Do you want a dedicated place to demo this stuff to people? I will make that happen. Jesus.
Yeah.
Computing technology is the thing we lack the most at Kineticon right now in terms of our wide range of content.
Probably, yeah.
And that would be fucking awesome. And I'm sure the overlap with the OC Remix people would be high.
I think the thing with the old computers, right, is if you want to do something cool with an old computer, you can probably do a similar thing with a modern but basic computer, right? If you have an Arduino or a Raspberry Pi, why would you do it with an Apple IIgs other than for the style factor?
About
right?
the style factor.
That's the only factor, right? It's
or the challenge factor.
Your modern computers, don't really have a lot of connectors on them that can be used to do things, right? Like a USB it's kind of hard to interface with the USB. That's why you need like an Arduino where you can, and all you do is use the USB to flash the Arduino, and the Arduino interacts with the real world with more basic circuitry. An Apple IIgs, you can just hook shit right up to it. You don't need an Arduino in between.
And that stuff went all the way through to until the serial and parallel ports died. I mean, even my 486, it came with this huge manual that was just voltages and pinouts and information for all the weird fucking ports in the back. And you know what? I just plugged things in with wires and plugged those wires into things, and you could do stuff.
Right.
You could send arbitrary data over those pins.
Well, the other major thing about most, the original PCs, right, up until, I guess, DOS, everything pre-DOS, even DOS came with BASIC, but all like Commodores, Apple IIs, Amigas, all those sorts of computers, when you turn them on, it was just there wasn't even a command line like a shell like DOS. It's just the basic interpreter was just right fucking there, and you were programming right from the get-go. Whereas on a modern computer, you need to install like a development environment to do any sort of programming stuff. It's like the whole setup thing. And I think that is like the key reason that programming is less accessible to people, is because it's not in their face as it was in the olden days.
Yep.
Even people today with like Macs will learn like some bash shell stuff because they might open terminal once in a while, but they don't learn to program shit unless they want to learn to program shit and go out of their way to learn to program shit.
Now, maybe that's a secondary use from showing people stuff in that if someone really wants to learn technology, taking one of these old computers and giving them a task to accomplish with that computer, I think might be a great teaching tool.
Mm-hmm.
Because I learned more about computers trying to figure out how to make games work on my computer than I learned from a decade of schooling and a decade of working in the industry.
Yeah, pretty much.
I wanted to make SimCity work. Wouldn't fucking work. I learned about memory management. I learned about bootloaders.
I learned about
boot disks.
Disk partitioning.
Yep. I learned about the differences between extended and expanded memory.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make my modems connect to play Doom. I learned about null modems. I learned how modems worked. I learned about modem commands.
Serial cables versus parallel cables.
Yep. Everything I know about computers dates back to the fact that computers were complicated, but they were deterministic in a way that I don't want to say modern computers aren't deterministic, but they are to an uninformed user. Mm-hmm. Especially because software is so complex that a lot of software will effectively not act in a consistent manner when you try to use it. So as a result, you can't learn as well about the underlying technology trying to interact with modern software on top of it. Did Word crash because of a bug, because of hardware? Why did it crash?
It's like if you're trying to learn board games and the first board game anyone tries to teach you is like Twilight Struggle. It's like, that shit ain't gonna happen.
Nope.
Right?
Or if it does, you'll learn Twilight Struggle, but you won't learn board games.
It's like you got to learn something simpler first, like maybe a backgammon or right? Something where you can learn basic mechanics, like this is how die rolling works. This is how moving pieces works. Okay, you've learned two things, rolling dice and moving pieces. Let's now move on to a game that has those things and a third thing, right? The oldest computers only have a very few things, so you can learn a lot about computers in general, right, with a very crappy computer that doesn't do anything really nowadays, right? Whereas if you use a modern computer, all you can do with those is learn how to use a modern computer. You can't learn anything about computers because it's way too complex, and all that stuff is hidden beneath many, many layers of abstraction. So what was the, what kind of old
Pause for a second.
Oh, you paused? Why'd you pause?
And in a stroke of ridiculous irony, Audition, which we use to record Geeknights,
Our extremely modern and expensive software.
just did something really weird, and we had to stop recording the show because all the waveforms disappeared. It just flipped out, and I had to restart it.
If we're using a trusty old Commodore, this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, probably not. It would have crashed because it ran out of memory or something, or because I unplugged it, or because there was a bug in the software, but then the bug in the software would be trivial to diagnose.
Yeah.
But I think there is a use. If I was in charge of a high school computer program, day one, everyone would get an Apple IIgs, and they would basically have to, over the first half of the course, learn how to use that thing to do everything they wanted to do. And they'd have to use it to do their assignments in other classes. And then in the second half of the year, they get a real computer.
You got to upgrade DOS next.
Oh, yeah, take them through all the stages.
All the stages, up and up. So what kind of old computers did you actually use in your life?
Actually use various IBM PCs, but my memories are so vague because this was like first, second grade that I cannot for the life of me tell you what like XT whatever they were. But we never used the computers raw. All we would ever do is you'd go into like a computer lab and they'd have some software already running that would like ask you questions or make you learn how to type or something really stupid. And I didn't learn anything about computers from that.
So pretty much only in school?
Yeah. Not until I joined in middle school, because in elementary school, we got I typed essays in like 4th and 5th grade. And then in 6th grade, we got the 486. That was when I started using computers hardcore. And the first things I did was install games in that 486 SX. The second thing I did was realize that we fucked up buying the SX. We should have gotten the DX. It wasn't that much more money.
Yeah, so I actually, the first time I used a computer was an Apple IIe in kindergarten.
Oh.
And so, of course, we started out just like put in the Word Munchers floppy and turn it on, right? But within a few minutes, I found the debug menu for Word Munchers, and that was that. Pretty much every classroom in elementary school had an Apple II, at least, of some kind, EGS, something. And I would use it whenever I was permitted to do so. And I just messed all around with it as much as possible. And like I even went to summer camp, and there was like a crappy summer camp I went to, which is basically go to one of the elementary schools in town for half a day every day in the summer, and you could choose 2 activities. So I always chose generic sporting activity for half of that time, and sit in the computer room for the other half of that time. And you'd play Oregon Trail, and you'd program stuff. And it was just like Logo, moving the turtle around.
Yep, we did Logo. Even in middle school, we did Logo.
And this is elementary school, right? And then the Mac started coming out, and then shit went crazy. And we're doing Mac Paint and all that nonsense.
Yep, I really wanted a computer pretty much from kindergarten on. Like I knew what they were, and we use them in school occasionally.
You saw them on TV a lot.
Yep, but couldn't really get one. I had my NES, which was enough.
Yeah. Well, you could have one of those Atari computers, like an Atari 800 XL or something.
Yeah, no, I just had Atari gaming consoles.
Yeah, my cousins had Commodore 64s, which I used a few times. Some friends had them too, but they mostly used them to like make music, using the SID chip and whatnot.
My uncle worked at IBM,
Played
so
some
he had
Gianna
a computer at home.
Yep.
I was always excited to look at it, but he wouldn't let me mess with it too much.
Other people's houses that I went over mostly had early IBMs, and I go to my dad's office, he had like a 386, and we'd play some Wolfenstein. Stuff like that.
Yep. When I got the 486 and then I joined the computer club, in quotes, in middle school, the club was pretty much, if you had a computer or not, you could just stay in the school after hours for like 4 hours every Monday and just do whatever you wanted on the computers. And pretty much all we did was play Scorched Earth. We just played Scorched Earth every day forever. We had the shareware version, and we were desperately trying to figure out how to unlock it to get that multi-shot tank.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I went to a real summer camp where they taught programming also. It was nerd camp, and I was doing like HTML, learned C there, learned Pascal, right?
Yep.
We were writing games and stuff like that.
I learned Cubase. I
learned
learned
Unix
Basic.
there.
Like someone told me, someone in the Science Olympiad, an adult was like, you should learn Basic. And then I found QBasic, and then I wrote a bunch of applications that mostly did nothing useful, and at best were really annoying to other people.
Yeah. In high school, we started a computer club, and we basically collected all the old computers, because that was about the time when Pentium 1s were out, like maybe junior year, maybe Pentium 2s even. And basically, we went around collecting all the computers that no one else was using anymore in the school, like all the Apple IIs and shit. And then we basically put them all together in this one sort of space up top of the library that no one was using, and we made like an old school computer lab.
And
we were even like buying extra bits on eBay that they didn't have. And that's where my Apple II GS and stuff that I have now, and my Mac Pro, Mac Plus, 1 megabyte comes from.
I remember
those days.
carrying a single floppy disk around with me that had pretty much every file I cared about in the world on it.
I carried, up until I got to RIT even, right, this plastic case that had a whole stack of floppies.
Yep, well, I had a
3.5
floppy
inch.
that was just Scorched Earth and a couple other games. And because that one, like, I'd leave in computers doing stuff. I had another one that was Stunts 4D Racing.
I had one that was my Mud client, and that's another great example of, even in the Pentium days, right? We had Windows 95, 98, and you really didn't, have that low-level sort of old computing experience to learn anything from. I was doing more advanced stuff, like doing MUD, so I was learning all about networking and how the internet worked, trying to telnet into servers, knowing what ports were and firewalls and all that kind of stuff.
I did my most fucking around with my modem. I had a 2600 baud modem, and what I do is I war dialed my neighborhood, and I was looking for other modems, and I was trying to basically anytime I found another modem, I tried to connect to it and see what was there. And I found a couple of local BBSs. I hit a lot of fax machines and people who seemed mad that a modem was calling them repeatedly.
Yeah, I didn't learn about modems, that kind of stuff. The only thing I did was I dialed into the local library in my town to check what books were there, because they actually had a card at the library that said how to do it.
Oh.
I never thought about trying to and I dialed friends to play Command and Conquer and stuff. But
Yep.
I never actually realized you could dial into BBSs or anything like that.
I remember that moment of revelation where me and this kid Brock were like he was the super nerd who
he
knew
had rock Pokemon.
Yeah, no. He had way more. This was before
6
Pokemon.
Geodudes.
He had way more. He was like the stereotype of the nerdy computer kid in every way. But he was a cool guy. Cool guy, and he had a modem, and I had a modem, and we both kind of knew how modems worked, so we were like, we should be able to call each other and connect. We spent an entire weekend calling each other, trying to get our modems to connect, and that is when I learned fucking everything there was to know about modems. And then there was this moment on Sunday afternoon where
it's not like you could Google anything.
Yep. We were reading the manuals to our computers. The back of my computer manual, this HP book that was an inch thick, had a list of modem commands, but some of them didn't work. I didn't know why.
Yeah, computers don't come with that shit anymore.
Yeah, it came out with voltage diagrams of everything.
I bought a copy of Borland Turbo C++.
Ken had that
for Windows 3.1, and it came in this giant box. It was $90 with I still have those manuals somewhere. Giant programming manuals for the OWL libraries, which will let you actually make Windows 3.1 Windows show up and stuff.
Yeah, that was a big deal.
Object Windows library.
The cool kids had Borland C++. My parents wouldn't buy it for me because it was expensive.
I bought it myself.
Yeah, I spent all my money on NES games. What'd you pay for that?
This was way later.
Yeah, what'd you pay for that?
This was middle school, $90.
Yeah, middle school, so SNES games.
Okay.
Yeah, for $70, I brought Chrono Trigger. That was way more important to me in my development.
I had enough games. I
did not.
I also bought MechWarrior 2.
Yeah.
And Descent.
But when I typed hey, are you there? And he saw what I typed and typed back at me, and we saw it in each other's consoles. I saw the entire future blowing through my eyes, and I knew what I was going to be when I grew up. I was going to be a computer.
A computer? You have success.
So there is a fourth use for this technology.
For old crap. It's funny how we have to talk about the uses that these old computers still have, because seriously, if you sit down at a computer, even a computer like a 486, if it doesn't have internet, you really can't modern internet with modern browsers and stuff like that. It's really hard to find any reason to spend any time using that computer short of playing an old game on it.
Yep, but there was a time in my life when I would sit at a non-networked computer for 4 hours in a row and be enjoying. I was having the time of my life.
But now it's unthinkable. It's what? This is a useless piece of junk.
So the fourth use is, if you care a lot about encryption and privacy and security, don't use one of those computers. That's not what I'm saying. Use it offline to generate your GPG keys, because that is the only hardware you will ever get your hands on that is pretty much guaranteed to not in any way be compromised.
I should generate keys with my Apple IIgs.
Yeah, then the only thing you have to trust is Scott.
And sell them.
You have to trust Scott?
No, you come over and we put a floppy disk in, it generates the key, and you walk out.
They have to trust the software you're using to generate the key.
I'll let them read it.
Yep.
And then they can press run themselves.
I'm dead serious, because that hardware
I'll put the code on the internet, open source. They can come to my house, download that software, and put it into the Apple IIgs.
The hardware in those old computers,
or get their own Apple IIgs and run
is
it.
effectively open source hardware for all intents and purposes.
We talk about the Apple IIgs a lot, and the reason is because the Apple IIgs it's an Apple II. It's not a Mac, right? The Mac was already out when the Apple IIgs came out. The Apple II had existed for a long time. The Apple I even longer, right? And I think the Apple III was even out. But the Apple IIgs, the GS stands for graphics and sound. It's an Apple II, but the screen is much higher resolution. It's all colors, not just green, right? And the sound is really great. And most of them have Steve Wozniak's like signature inside of them. And you think about Apple computers now, and they're known for like this beautiful design and whatnot, right? But that's mostly in their software, right? And the outside of their hardware. The inside of a Mac is, in some ways, a modern Mac on the inside is beautifully designed, but really it's complicated as fuck because it's a modern computer, right? If you open an Apple II GS, the inside of it, compared to any other computer you're ever going to see, is just miraculously beautiful. Like the power supply goes straight down one side. There's all these identical slots lined up in a row. Everything is perfectly labeled and laid out, right, in a logical way, and it looks like you'd think like if they sacrificed all this performance to line things up in a way that's really friendly. It's like the most user-friendly hardware desktop computer in the universe, right? It's like this miracle. So like if you want to get an old computer, I recommend that computer pretty much above any computer else that's old anywhere.
And think of this, because the hardware is so well documented with those old documented
there's
connectors,
so much software for it. You can get hardware for it really easily.
You could plug this thing that you're going to use to generate your GPG keys into a hardware, like reliable random number generator.
There's so many things you can get for an Apple II GS. Like people put modern hard drives in them. People connect them to the internet and browse the web. People play Wolfenstein 3D on them, which came out in the 90s, way after. Like, this computer has no right to run that software, but it does. Right? The thing that I have is you basically have a serial cable, so it goes USB on my real computer. Then there's like a connector, and then it goes into the modem port on the Apple II GS. I type some commands in the Apple II GS and I run some software on my computer, and the Apple II GS now thinks that the files on my hard drive in my modern computer are basically like floppy disks that are loading on it, and it can, right? And it's I think it's called ADB or ADP or something like that. You can just search for it, like Apple Disk something, and it's pretty miraculous the kind of stuff that you can do with that, right? Like I can write Apple II software on my modern computer and load it onto the real hardware and not use an emulator. So it's just very, very supported. Commodore 64 is also very supported, but, they're a little more annoying to use, a little less reliable, whatnot. But hey, the Commodore 64 put a man on the moon, so it's not shabby. It's not shabby.
We didn't even get into calculators. I think we did a show on calculators, though.
Graphing calculators?
Yeah. My TI-85, fuck your 86, and it's bullshit.
My 86 is vastly superior.
Yeah, the 85 had issues.
Yeah, okay.
But your expanded memory was way slow. You had to load stuff in that tiny memory area if you wanted performance.
I didn't need performance.
I needed performance. I was playing mostly games.
Assembly program games. They were fast anyway.
Yeah, I was writing basically basic games.
Yep.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geeknights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.